Yeah, we've got some pretty sick new cards on the way to Marvel Snap in the month of October. I think this one behind me is going to have a lot of people who love it in particular. I can't imagine why, but yeah, the latest data mines have landed, and the October season is going to be vampires versus zombies, which I think was actually, they told us that a long time ago, but vampire cards that look like are going to be all about stealing power, as you can see here from Vampire Enchantress, and we're going to get some more zombie cards that are going to revisit the Horde keyword as we expected, and I think a few of these, as always, are definitely standouts. They're going to do some big numbers and some big work in Marvel Snap. So that said, these are data mined cards. These are not necessarily final. Stats can certainly change at this point. Even sometimes effects can change. I will also note I made the logos for these, so don't expect the actual card logos to look like this. I mean, the Enchantress here is from the regular Enchantress, but I made the Vampire, and you'll see that throughout this video. So I just hate when they don't have the logos. I want the video to look prettier, so I spent 30 minutes doing that today. Anyway, this is Vampire Enchantress. She is a new 6/7. Great. And on reveal, for each different cost among your cards in play, steal 1 power from an enemy card here. So basically, you are looking to, I guess, kind of curve out, right? You want to play a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She will then be a 6. I think she should indeed count herself. You could even throw a Wasp in the mix as well to have 7 different costs in play. I mean, I guess, like, technically, Death and a Fin Fang Foom too, if you really somehow made all that work, that'd be pretty tough. But in theory, I guess up to 9 different costs in play available right now. Is that right? I think so, right? 0 up through 8. Yeah, 9 different costs, which means she would steal up to 9 power from an enemy card here, which really is effectively an 18-point swing. She gains 9, they lose 9. That would technically make her a 625, which would certainly be one of the biggest, if not the outright biggest 6-drop in Marvel Snap outside of some like blob shenanigans, I guess, which definitely makes her a powerhouse. Now, of course, you're not really ever going to get that big. You're more reasonably going to have probably 5 or 6, maybe even sometimes down to 4, just because you didn't hit your curve, things didn't pan out that well. But even if she's stealing 4 or let's say 5, because I think getting her in play too is very often going to get you to 5, that's still like a 10-point swing. Even an 8-point swing puts her at that 615. A 10-point swing puts her at a 617. Again, we're talking about total net output, right? Plus 5 minus 5 is 17 total output, which is still really big and competitive. Puts her in that space of the Galactus First Steps for those big powerhouse 6-drops that can just single-handedly carry a location while you do your other stuff. And I think that's how she's probably just going to get played. On top of that, you could have some stealing synergies where that Affliction somehow plays in. You got an Ajax in play, or again, we've talked about Affliction sometimes can kind of go 2 for 1 if you hit a Captain Carter, an Iron Man, whatever, right? Sometimes the negative stats there can actually be way more impactful than just their raw output. So, I do think this is in that slot of just generically good 6-drops, particularly for a deck that wants to play on curve. You could even use stuff like a Wiccan deck that's trying to curve out perfectly, and then you have that extra energy to maybe weave in one of those higher cost cards like we talk about to push Vampire Enchantress even further. She's also got those Fin Fang Foom vibes where she's just kind of soloing a spot, not exactly matching your opponent like Foom does, but just big enough that you just throw her down and you kind of know it's going to do work. So I like this card. I like just kind of good cards. I like just kind of curve cards like that. And I think Enchantress becomes a really good top end for those sort of decks that probably often replaces something like Galactus First Steps, and then also has those Affliction synergies from time to time to play into as well. So next up here is Vampire Deacon Frost, a 4/5 with objective. 3 of your cards have stolen power. If you achieve that with all your vampire stuff or I don't know, Spider Punk. I mean, there's actually quite a few cards that have the ability to steal power. Silver Sable steals power, so on and so forth. Then you're going to transform into Crimson Behemoth, which is a big old 4/9 with on reveal, steal all the power of a front row enemy card here. So this is legit, just like a Fin Fang Foom that is basically, I guess, even better than a Fin Fang Foom, isn't it? Because Fin Fang Foom just matches the power of an enemy card, a front row enemy card at that. But Crimson Behemoth is going to steal it, which is basically doubling the power of it. That is actually insane. I didn't even really process that in my mind. I was just thinking this was literally Foom, but it's like double Foom. So if they have a 10 power card, you get a 20-point swing because that 10 power card goes to 0 and you go to 419. Which is ridiculous. Now, you're not always going to hit the big cards, but even hitting like, 3 or 4 power card or whatever is still going to make this insane for 4 cost, right? That is completely nuts. Like, steal 4, gain 4, you're talking about a 417. And I don't even really think this condition is that difficult to activate either. Like, clearly, if you're going to be doing this, you're going to be building your deck into this. But there's enough stealing out there that it's going to happen consistently. Like, and the great news with Objective is too, no matter when you play this, like, he's going to come down and give you a chance to, again, like, solo a lane basically all by himself, particularly if you hit a big Sinister 6 or something, slam this in your opponent's Sinister 6 location and just absolutely farm them up. That's kind of wild. So yeah, dude, Vampire Deacon Frost actually looks completely nuts. I need to take a closer look actually at all the steel cards available in Marvel Snap, but I'm pretty sure there's enough that it's not a problem. I'm actually literally going to load the game up right now. So yeah, here are the steel cards so far, right? Silver Sable, Cassandra Nova, Rocket and Groot, Rogue is not power, so that won't work. Spider Punk, Dragon of the Moon I forgot about. That's actually a pretty cool one. Selene, which this is actually like... Deacon Frost is just sort of a better Selene, like a different condition check, of course, but like the result here, maybe not always better, but he's starting at 4/9, so it kind of feels better. Laufey's a good steal, and then of course we're also looking at the new vampire cards as well as ways to steal. So play this on 4, slam your vampire Enchantress on 6. That's already just 2 absolute powerhouses for a steel deck, where it feels like this is just going to be its own wing condition. Enchantress is a wing condition. Like, this card is nuts, man. It's really, really strong as far as I'm concerned. So next up is Vampire America Chavez. She is a 3/4 this time around. She's got on reveal, for each location you're winning, steal 1 power from the top character of your opponent's deck. So in essence, you can be winning up to 3 locations. That means you're going to be stealing 3. That puts you at a 3/7. And then if they play that resulting card, they kind of have a -3, making her net output a 310 in total if you're winning 3 locations and if they play that card. Hopefully you're at least getting a 3/7 out of this pretty reliably, even if they don't end up playing that, because it's just a bad play at that point, right? But you might still have some like denial there of a card they otherwise would have had some cool upside on, especially if you hit those key Captain Carters or whatever. But beyond that, like, you're not always going to be winning 3 locations, particularly, as a 3 cost card, I guess. Like, do you save this for later? Are you trying to play this on turn 3? How reliably are you ahead in 3 spots? Clearly a deck that's running a lot of tempo, maybe even, Quicksilver into Domino stuff to make sure you have those early hits to get you those leads, or just some of those tempo-ier techno-organic virus style decks, of course. But now also you're thinking about steel decks, vampire decks, a few angles to consider on this one. But honestly, even if you're winning, say 2 spots, this becomes kind of like a Silver Sable of sorts, right? Where it's like, okay, Silver Sable's a good card. I like Silver Sable, right? But it's just a Silver Sable that costs a little more and at a higher base that occasionally also, has some upside beyond that when she steals 3 instead of 2. And, worst case, this is really bad if you're not winning any locations. I will say, like, this falls off just crazy hard, right? Of course, it's just a 3/4 in that instance, which is really, really tough. But even if you're winning 1, you kind of sort of get a 3/6 if you squint. But then also, we have affliction decks, we have steel decks now as a probably unique independent thing. So there are also synergies there, much like you see Silver Sable popping up sometimes alongside Scorpion and some affliction payoffs. Chavez could do that as well. I will will say 3 costs, a little clunkier perhaps in some of those affliction decks. That's a higher, competition slot basically when it comes to energy costs. So I don't know. I could see you're not really making the cut in affliction decks, particularly because, if you think about things like Scorpion, that's much more likely to impact your Ajax, whereas this is kind of honing in on a single target at a much higher cost, kind of less likely to connect from an affliction standpoint. So probably thinking more about vampire decks in particular. This is just an easy way to get a card down for your Vampire Deacon Frost. And that's going to be enough of a payoff. So, if you're just going for ultimate consistency, Vampire America Chavez probably gets played in that Deacon Frost deck just because you need her to, you need as many steals as possible to make him really, really reliable. But at the same time, if 4 or 5 steel cards is enough to hit him consistently, I could actually see her getting cut a little bit. So in other words, she's, I think, actually kind of fine, especially just high tempo decks. A 3/7, that's not bad at all. We already see like debris in that slot kind of, and a 3/7 with upside if they play that card, or denial if they don't get to play a card they want to. That's pretty good too. So I guess what I'm saying is like actually pretty solid card. Moving on here to Vampire Killmonger. He is now a 2/2 with end of turn. If you spent all your energy, get a Vampiric Spear, which is a 1-cost skill. With on reveal, Vampire Killmonger steals 2 power from a character in your opponent's hand. So this is basically a way to scale up over time with these Vampiric Spears. You're kind of getting like, Silver Sable plus Merlin vibes out of this, and it's actually stealing from hand, which is also really, really nice. They might have one thing that kind of gets stuck up there. The zombie Galacti is in hand up there, and you just keep Vampiric Spearing it turn after turn, basically. Like, that's actually a pretty cool idea, and that's also just plus 4 points every single time you play one of these on your Vampire Killmonger, which, 4 points for 1 energy is actually a really nice return. And, on top of that, the Vampiric Spears, that 1 cost actually probably makes it easier to kind of fill in your turns to make sure that you're hitting that end of turn, spending all of your energy for the Vampire Killmonger. So kind of, smoothing off some of those rough edges when it comes to energy costs. So it's like a lot of this, I think, is leading into some really big point values. It's a steal card for Deacon Frost again. I think that's already really good. So I like this a lot. I like curve flexibility in that Merlin slot. I like the steal impact. I like the hand debuff. I like the just raw stat output on Killmonger. He's potentially going to get really big if you play one of these on turn 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's 4 times 4 power, which is 16. Is that 16 extra power? Potentially you got an 18 power Killmonger. Is that legit? Of course you're spending 4 extra energy to do that. So it's kind of a 6/18 at that level, but like that actually still sounds pretty good. And again, the affliction has upside beyond just the raw stats. So I think this card actually looks really quite strong. Very, very good. Moving on here to Zombie Nova, the first of our zombie cards and the return of the Horde keyword. This is a 2/0 with on reveal and when destroyed, Horde +3. So if you play this in a little bit of a Horde destroy hybrid deck, this could be worth +6 total points to your Horde, which that is actually really nice. Of course, that +6 points on a Horde can then also be duplicated by Zombie Giant Man, which can then also be duplicated again by Absorbing Man. So that +6 sometimes turns into, +18 throughout the course of a game, which is actually really a nice rate on return here for a 2-drop, because if it's just a 2/6, you'd be like, I don't know if that's enough. But even, a single Zombie Giant Man turning this into a 2/12, you're like, oh yeah, okay. And there's also now even additional ways. Use a Thanos to copy your zombie Horde. You can even multiply those stats even further. So makes a lot of sense from a numbers standpoint. Now the question there though is, does it make a lot of sense from a deck construction standpoint? Because how often are you playing destroy cards in a zombie Horde deck? We are going to see one additional card here, which will just go ahead and show Zombie Venom. This also reads on reveal, destroy your first other card here. After one of your other cards is destroyed, Horde +2. So this has both an on reveal and kind of an on, repeatable effect for later. Once this is on board, as you start destroying more and more stuff, you just kind of feed into that Horde. So you could see sort of a scenario where you play squirrels on 1, Zombie Nova on 2. You Zombie Venom the, well, I guess you wouldn't actually want squirrels in the way. You'd want to destroy your Zombie Nova. But at some point later, you play squirrels, okay? Then you come in with a Killmonger to sweep up your squirrels. And because you have Zombie Venom, if you destroy 3 squirrels, you're looking at another +6 basically on this Zombie Venom horde output. So like, you know, those kind of Weapon X wide board destroy shells. Maybe it's even got Thanos in there. I don't know. It's like, oh, dude, okay. Actually, I'm just getting a ton of points on my horde. And then you maybe still have, you know, your Zombie Giant Man, Absorbing Man as a finisher. And Absorbing Man could even, you know, again, be another Zombie Venom, for instance, and so on. So it's like, it basically becomes this just secondary way to play horde decks. I don't actually think you put maybe Zombie Scarlet Witch in the mix. I don't know if it looks the same. Maybe Horde's still in there because it's just so cheap and, you know, easy to play, but it's more of a destroy deck with the same kind of top end as opposed to the like spam your cards deck like the Zombie Horde Kitty Pride type stuff that we currently have. So just a different spin on it. And I actually think the Zombie Venom has enough long-term output here because it's just that text after one of your other cards is destroyed, Horde +2, you can destroy a lot of cards if you build your deck well. I think this could put out easily as many or more points as a Zombie Scarlet Witch, basically in the same kind of slot, basically. So between these two, man, that's really cool. There's also technically some angles where you could use Zombie Venom here as a like targeted destroy. We don't have any other destroys that hit just the one thing in the spot. This is destroying specifically your first other card here. It's like, I doubt that's worth it. I'm thinking like, does Nimrod need that for some reason or something where you're trying to like work around other cards? It's probably the opposite with like Shuri down first, but I don't know. It's like something to keep in mind anyway for sneaky combos or weird plays or something. But I do think between these two cards, this might actually just already be enough to make the destroy deck pretty good. And then, you know, just regular destroy stuff on top of that. You know, you got a Bucky Barnes in the mix, whatever. You got some Carnages, regular Venoms, I don't even know, but Killmonger seems like a really big opportunity too. That looks pretty strong to me. I think that's actually just enough of an engine already for that to come together well. So on top of that, we also here have Zombie Blade, which is so funny. The epitome of like vampires versus zombies, right? You got a vampire hunter who is now a zombie, and also I think Blade is also actually still just a vampire as well, right? But he hunts I don't even know, dude. I've seen the movie, but I forget. I think he's got sharp teeth. He must also still be a vampire. Half vampire, is that what it is? How do you be half a vampire? Is Blade a vampire? Blade is half human, half vampire. I mean, how is that possible? He's not a fully traditional vampire. Instead, he possesses the strength of vampires while keeping a human soul. That's what I thought, but I don't know how it works. Anyway, oh my god, this is the worst aside ever. Zombie Blade is a 2/3. End of turn, if you played an on reveal, your zombie horde steals 1 power from a character in your opponent's hand. Horde first if necessary, which I think that parenthetical means like you need to have one out. I don't think he's making you one. Otherwise, I think they would just use the normal thing they do where it says like horde +1 and then it would say end of turn. That would be kind of the same amount of text, I guess, and so on. But this is kind of crazy because it's both the steal and horde. So it is actually fusing zombies and vampires mechanics together. And also, you know, stealing from hand, again, that hand debuff upside is pretty cool on that. And you know, it's a 1 per turn hit. It's not per on reveal. It's just that end of turn. But that's still, you know, it's probably not going to go off on turn 2 unless you just throw a yellow jacket in or something. But if you play this on 2, it's going to go off on 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's 4 turns, which means your horde is stealing 4 points, makes that horde way bigger for your zombie giant man. But then also that's kind of worth 8 points again if the opponent tries to play those cards out. So you've got affliction hooks, you've got steal vampire hooks, although you do have to commit to horde first if you're going to do that, which I don't know how much you're going to want to do that. You've got just regular horde stuff as well. I think actually this goes surprisingly well in the destroy deck because the destroy cards are a lot of on reveals, right? So you might actually just very naturally be playing those on reveals in your horde destroy package as well. So you get another way to feed into those big hordes. Same thing with zombie giant man, absorbing man, etc. So I think again this actually looks pretty good, man. And I see this could also actually go in the other horde deck as well. This one has a ton of flexibility, so this could be in both 2 independently good horde decks, which I think makes this actually a pretty good card. So our final card here is Zombie Black Cat. She is a 3/5. She is not related to Horde at all. She's a when discarded synergy card because she reads when discarded, discard another when discarded card. And then jump to your location with the fewest cards. So a little bit of that Proxima Midnight vibe where when you're discarding her, you're kind of getting these stats in play for free, but instead of lowest power, it's least cards. So it's going to find an empty spot basically, which is similarly really nice to Proxima Midnight for accessing those like, you know, unavailable spots that are like locked off or whatever, Sanctum Sanctorum, where you can't get another card there basically. She would still have some really good targeting on that side of things. But then she's also going to create a nice little chain for you as well, where it's not only just like Black Cat, she might also just pull your Proxima Midnight, right? It's like I get a 2-for-1 basically on my discard, which is honestly pretty cool and could create some nice little chains. I was also thinking, you know, we've had that kind of discard dump deck that's surprisingly good where you have like the Moon Girl and you just create that hand full of like Wolverines and Proximas, and now maybe a Black Cat, a Zombie Black Cat goes in there as well. Like that's definitely a possibility. You wouldn't really necessarily need the MODOK because like MODOK would already, it would kind of be overkill. He's already discarding. So this effect where she pulls another when discarded card wouldn't really help, but it might be a nice backup on games where you didn't hit that MODOK or you only have a limited chain of discards. You have to rely on, you know, some other, you know, Corvus Glaive or whatever, and then you still get a lot of bodies out of it thanks to maybe multiple Black Cats or just a 2-for-1 on Corvus Glaive. Could still be really nice. So I think this becomes a really good like hand filler for your discard decks. Corvus Glaive, MODOK payoffs, Moon Girl payoffs, regular discard decks, just good fodder, 5 points, much like that Proxima Midnight is really good in those decks too. I just think it looks pretty great. You know, a few different ways to slice it, and good free points is a great thing to see in Marvel Snap. So I think it's another good card. So all that said, that's the 8 upcoming cards. I'm not going to try to rank these from best to worst, but honestly, I think there's a lot of good ones. My number 1 card is Vampire Deacon Frost. Number 2 is Vampire Enchantress. Number 3 is Vampire Killmonger. Number 4 is Zombie Venom. Number 5 is Zombie Nova. Number 6 is Zombie Blade. Number 7 is Zombie Black Cat. But for the record, I still think she's very good. Number 8 is Vampire America Chavez. And I don't actually think she's bad either. I think this is just a really nice batch of cards. I see a lot of playable stuff here, frankly. So pretty cool month, man. Share your thoughts on these cards down below. Do you agree these look like they do some pretty sick stuff? I'm pretty sure Vampire Deacon Frost is totally busted. 4/9 Crimson Behemoth seems insane. He stands alone in this review among a lot of good cards because he just seems completely cracked as far as I can tell. So let me know if you agree or not down in the comments below. Thanks as always for watching, and I guess I will see you around.